want to talk about a couple of things regarding his image as a maverick or a moderate. Chris Kafinas, who was involved with the John Edwards campaign, has been using a line lately, which I really wish the Obama campaign would grab and perhaps even put into an ad when it becomes time for negative ads. And the line is that the John McCain of 2000 would not vote for the John McCain of 2008. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that, because definitely during that little window, around 2000, 2002, he did break with the Bush administration on some very key areas, tax cuts. He still has broken with them on global warming, but campaign finance reform, tobacco regulation. There were a whole bunch of things where you could point to John McCain and say, yes, he's different. Now, of course, you also point out, using some of Jacob Hacker's work, that part of that difference is that the Republican Party has moved so far to the right that, anything, to the left of Attila the Hun, can be called centrist these days. But the fact is that at least he was making those noises. Today, he's not even making those noises.
No, and the question is, how far to the right do you have to move before they stop calling you a maverick?
Right.
And, if you look at just what he's done in this campaign, McCain has flip-flopped on the Bush tax cuts. We used to be against them. He voted against them in 2001. He said that they were too tilted to the wealthy. Now he says he wants to make them permanent, and he basically denies that he ever said they were too tilted to the wealthy.
Right.
Now he claims that it was because they weren't offset by spending cuts, which he wasn't saying at the time.
Right.
He flip-flopped on immigration during the primaries. He used to be an advocate of comprehensive immigration reform, and he said that building fences wasn't going to do anything unless you had a comprehensive reform. Now he says, because he was getting flack for that, but from the Republican base, then he came out and said, well, no, now we want to secure the borders first, and we'll put off comprehensive reform.
Right.
He flip-flopped on ethanol because this time he was competing in the Iowa caucuses, and he wasn't competing in the Iowa caucuses in 2000. So you have all of these cases where he's moving to the right, where he's changing his positions to do the most politically expedient thing. And yet, nonetheless, the press still talks about him as though he's the one politician who doesn't do things just for politically expedient reasons.
Yeah, it's not in your book, but hasn't he also flip-flopped to a certain extent on the torture issue?
He has, and he made a great show of opposing the Bush administration on torture and trying to get them to adhere to the Geneva Conventions.
Right.
And then when the rubber met the road and the actual bill was passed, it turns out that it left plenty of loopholes for President Bush to keep torturing essentially as much as he wanted, as long as he didn't call it torture.
Right.
And then, when there was another bill to force the CIA to adhere to the standards in the Army Field Manual, which forbid that kind of treatment, McCain wouldn't support it. So, the story that the press told about that was that he was the heroic guy who had been tortured himself, standing up for principle and American values. But it turns out that he really did knuckle under to the Bush administration.
Mm-hmm. So let's flash forward a little bit. And by the way, it's really a great book, Paul. And I recommend it to everyone. It's free ride. John McCain in the media, and Paul Waldman and David Brock wrote this, who are both with Media Matters, which of course is a great organization.